Good morning, everyone. I saw a great quote that said, when an egg breaks from outside force, life ends. But when an egg breaks from inside force, life begins. All great things begin from within. The opening word of this week's Torah portion is Vayeilech. And the portion is called Vayeilech because it starts with the verse that says, Vayeilech Moshe. Moses went and spoke all of these words to the entire Jewish nation. And what does he say to them? He says, I can no longer carry on. I can no longer continue. Why? Because God told me I will not cross over the Jordan River. And therefore I am going to appoint Joshua to be my successor, and he will lead you into to the homeland, to the land of Israel. And the question is, first of all, why does it have to say Moses went? Where did he go? He could have just said he spoke these words to the Jewish people. But furthermore, the very next verse says that Moshe says, I cannot go anymore. The end of the road has come. I cannot journey forth. God told me I cannot enter into the land of Jordan. So why is the portion called Vayeilech and Moses went, when the entire point of the opening verse is that I can no longer go, and therefore Joshua has to succeed me and lead you into the land of Israel? And the Baal Shem Tov gives a beautiful answer, and he says what the verse is saying is, Moshe Rabbeinu says in the opening verse, I am 120 years old today. It's the last day of my life. So the question is, where is Moshe going? Where does he go at the end of his life? So therefore, he says, Vayeilech, I am going into the soul of every single Jew. I am not disappearing. I am going into your souls. A spark of Moses, our greatest leader, prophet and king, teacher of Torah, is in every single one of us. And therefore Moses says, Vayeilech Moshe, the Torah says, went into all of us and remains embedded in our souls. And therefore, all we have to do is discover the spark of Moses that we contain within ourselves, and then we could achieve all the greatness, spiritual greatness, physical greatness that Moshe Rabbeinu discovered in his life, because we contain a part of him within ourselves. It's a lovely story that was told over by Richard Griffin, was the personal security royal protector of Queen Elizabeth. And he told a charming story that he was once with the Queen in her Scottish castle, Balmoral, and she would go for walks in the hillsides, and she would put on her kerchief and go for a walk, and Richard Griffin would escort her as his personal protection detail, and he was with her for many decades. And he said whenever they would meet people along the trails, she would always greet them and be friendly towards them. Well, one day they're walking and they see two tourists walking towards them, people hiking. And the Queen Elizabeth says hello, greets them, and they stop and say hello, and they start talking. And they obviously didn't recognize it was the Queen. She was wearing her kerchief and they didn't identify who she was. It was clear they didn't know who it was, and they started talking. They said, yeah, we're from America. We've gone here, we've gone there, we've been to Buckingham Palace, we saw the changing of the guards, and they're talking. And then they turn to Queen Elizabeth and they say, do you live here? And she says, I have a place over the hill here, a small place, And they say, really? Well, we heard that there's the castle, Balmoral Castle is around here. If you live here, have you ever met the Queen Elizabeth? And Queen Elizabeth says, no, I've never met her, but Richard here meets her on a regular basis. And they turn to Richard Griffin. They say, really, you meet the Queen on a regular basis? He said, yeah. They say, well, what is she like? And he had a good relationship with the Queen for many decades. He said, well, she's very testy, but she has a good sense of humor. And they say, really, wow, can we take a picture with you? And before he knows it, they put their hands around Richard, and they hand the camera to Queen Elizabeth and say, could you take a picture of us with him? And the Queen takes the camera and takes a picture of them. Afterwards, Richard Griffin says, let me take a picture of you, with her. And They go next to the queen not knowing who it was, and they take a picture of her, and they part ways and continue on their hike. And the queen turns to Richard Griffin and says, I wish I could be a fly on the wall when they show their pictures to their friends band in America and someone tells them who I am. You know, sometimes, like the queen said, we don't meet ourselves. We don't get to know who we are. We have to discover who we are. The spark of godliness inside of ourselves, the soul, and within that, the spark of Moses, our teacher. And that's Moshe Rabbeinu's parting message. You can do great things in your life. You can be a leader. You could attain tremendous attachment and closeness to God, because I don't leave. I go into each and every one of you. Have a wonderful day.